You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
All right, that is James MENNIE. He's over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, big presser today. Christian Dubé was there with all his helpers. I want you to hear this clip, and then we'll talk about what we didn't hear.
We're missing in the greater Montreal around 1,000 beds to put our emergency at the right level. We have a program that we put in place just before December to go and buy 500 of them on the private side. The second solution, when you say, are we missing people? The answer is yes. And I think that hopefully in the next few weeks, what is being negotiated, what's being voted, and what is being taking place under our collective agreement, I think will make also a big difference to get more people to come on.
So my first reaction is he okay? Because, no, I'm serious. He did not sound the way at least not to me, the way he usually does, a little low-key there today. I'm thinking something going on. And secondly, what was the point of this if all he said was everything he's previously said before this? We've heard the story about the 500 beds and the short of that. What was the point of this?
You raise an excellent point, and I think we're at the point now where, and certainly, we're talking about Christian Dubé. This could be any number of Quebec health ministers going back to the 1990s talking about overcrowding in ERs. These problems have been built into the system for decades, and it's tough to figure out what exactly was the point of this. I mean, apart from sort of trying to convey the message that somehow the unions will have a role to play in this, which I think is completely ridiculous. I mean, this is Bill 15 calls for managers to take over the minutiae of all the nuts and bolts of the healthcare system, presumably including ERs. How we wound up, and we still have a shortage of 1,000 beds. We're trying to make up that shortfall, but then at the same time, he says, as we've been hearing, literally for decades, a lot of people who come to the ER have no reason to be there. They shouldn't be at the ER. Okay, that's fine. That message has come out, as I say, for the past few decades. But once again, why are you holding this press conference? I really think given the events of the past few months, whether it's the controversy over the Legault government's flip-flops, whether it is indeed the real shock this government got from the level of public support that was being given to the public sector unions, I think at this point it is absolutely necessary, even though it is the beginning of the year, theoretically it's a slow news cycle, this government needs to be seen to be doing something. It needs to be seen to be present, to be aware of what's going on, listening to the average Quebecer and making sure that they haven't lost our interest over this holiday season. That, to me, would be the only explanation. But you're a zillion percent right. I don't understand why this happened. I did not get any fresh answers. Apparently, during the presser as well, we still have problems getting a hold of a family doctor. So essentially, once again, we're holding a press conference to say stuff we already know. And I think it's really, really just to be shown to be doing something with a capital D and a capital S, as opposed to just, realizing that, unfortunately, ER overcrowding and a medical system that is not working at 100% is my God, it's Quebec tradition.
The other thing is no one's listening, right? Like you can say over and over and over again, don't go to ERs until unless you absolutely have to. But unless you provide some sort of viable alternative, people are still going to go there. So, I mean, fix the problem. Don't just keep repeating the same thing and hope that somehow it's going to miraculously fix itself.
Yeah, we have a plan, we have a plan, we have a plan.
No, you don't.
That's what they keep saying.
Well, you have a plan. They have a plan. I think the first thing is when you feel sick enough to take yourself to the hospital, you're not going to go to a CLSC. You're certainly not going to call 811. If you feel that sick and you're going to go out, I with all due respect, I think, when people show up at the ER, it's not because they have a stuffed up nose.
No, of course.
I mean, they might be of a certain age and concerned, have been told that, at your age, this could be very, very serious. And remember, a lot of people don't have, you just got through admitting, a lot of people don't have access to a family doctor or a doctor of any kind. Yeah. So, they'll show up there.
And they're scared. Like, how does this do anything
Sure.
to, make Quebecers feel like, oh, it's going to be okay? It doesn't. It doesn't do that at all.
Well, This is all they've got, Natasha. This is it. The press conference with the Minister of Health, who is on the one hand saying he's going to shake the foundations of the healthcare system. We're going to have Top Guns, and a lot of this will go to the private sector. We'll be resorting to the private sector for help on this. And on the other, he's sort of like saying the same catechism that previous health ministers have made, that people shouldn't be there, but they are there, and we're short beds, and so on and so forth. And nothing ever seems to change. This is not a problem that is unique to the CAQ government, that is unique to François Legault, but it certainly is a problem that they're not solving.
I was saying to Natasha when we played one of the clips back earlier on, this idea of blaming patients, and I know you're kind of stuck in between here, right? You're a little bit in no man's land.
Yeah.
Because yes, the problem is too many people are showing up, as he said today, in emergency who don't need to be there. But no one thinks that way, as you said, Jim, before they go there. You're sick. You can't get a doctor. You can't get an 811 without waiting 3 hours to find out where you should go. So you end up there. But again, I wonder how that plays for people to hear, a minister call out people saying, hey, you're doing the wrong thing. We told you not to go there unless you're really, really sick. It comes across really badly to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it comes across very badly, if only because he's not the first one to have conveyed that message. And as Natasha quite rightly points out, it doesn't work. People aren't listening. So maybe it's time for a different approach. Maybe it's time for a different look to give ERs to get the message out to the public. And this is a government that seems to put great store by messaging. But so far, like you say, they're just reciting the same kind of finger pointing that we've been hearing for years. And once again, people will continue to ignore it. And we'll still have press conferences like this. But the fact is, maybe the question should be, how do we get those 1,000? How do we lose those 1,000 beds? How do we wind up 1,000 beds short after we just created 2 super hospitals? And how do we make up for that shortfall? Blaming the patient, I don't think, is a good idea.
All right. Listen, let's move on.
We're talking about reruns. Yeah. I mean, I think the logical thing next is to talk about Denis Coderre. He's back. Did he ever actually go anywhere? But he's now talking about running for the Quebec Liberals.
Well, he says he's interested in. Of course, the other question is the Quebec Liberal Party interested in Denis Coderre? Is Quebec interested in Denis Coderre? Mm-hmm. Perhaps the best line that I've heard all day on this so-called development in the Liberal leadership story comes from José Legault, columnist, the former columnist of the Gazette, columnist over at the Journal de Montreal, who wrote this afternoon that the voters have shown that you can take repeatedly shown that you can't take Denis Coderre out of politics. Unfortunately, Denis Coderre, you can't take the politics out of Denis Coderre. Yeah. So, will he keep going back? Will he keep trying? Will he hope that Lucy doesn't move the football this time? I don't know. I wish him luck. It's a free country. And we're not exactly talking about a glittering prize here, guys. It's not exactly like he's elbowing people out of the way to put in for this job. We're hearing his name. We're hearing the name of, Antoine Dion Charest, son of Jean Charest. So the one thing that's for sure, the message that's coming out thus far is we're not, being overwhelmed by a tsunami of new blood in this political exercise. I don't think things are going to get any better between now and 2025, which is when they think that they'll be able to get away with holding a leadership race. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Denis Coderre. It's almost the same circumstances that brought him to the mayoralty of Montreal. Union Montreal was in disarray. Gérald Tremblay had resigned from office after the provincial government of the day under Pauline Marois had made it clear that they didn't have any confidence in him. So he had left. The job was up for grabs. We had 4 mayors. Finally, the election came up. And here comes Denis Coderre leaving federal politics to run the city of Montreal. And we all know in that first election he won. Didn't win by a landslide, and he came in. It was a decent lead, but a respectable second came from Melanie Joly, who back then was known as Melanie Who. And then the next 2 tries he failed. So listen, good luck to him. I hope above and beyond everything else that he takes care of his health. He's saying he's got the doctor's ticket to greenlight this and go through. That's fine, but he knows this can be a grind. And we'll see what happens. But as I say, maybe the question isn't about Denny Kadar. It's the people who would put him in office, and I'm not entirely sure they're convinced that he's the guy for the job.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if it's about Lucy moving the football or not allowing him to kick it in the first place. So we'll have to wait and see. But that's going to be my question coming up. Jim, thank you. Appreciate it.
Adama.